Yo, Joburg. This is episode 249, where three friends chat about G.I. Joe. My name is Steve. I'm joined by...
99. My Paul.
By Paul.
And Rob, lovely wintry Rob.
Ah, yes. Well, it is winter in the southern hemisphere. Sorry, everybody up north, but we have suddenly turned our attentions to the weather, and yeah, it's never snowy in our parts of the globe, but it's pretty wet. I've just come out of 2 weeks, almost 2 weeks of solid rainfall.
Oh, amazing.
Is it? I don't know, man. This is a pretty sunny place, and I kind of miss the sun. After 2 weeks of not seeing it, you're like, jeez.
Complaining for 6 months, it's so hot, and then suddenly it's like, I miss the hot. Where is it?
Where's my spicy weather?
Yeah, you expect you'd never say that, but honestly, like, too much of a good thing, right? Anyways, our topic this evening, this morning, this day, or whenever you're listening, is going to be along the lines of childhood misconceptions that we had about the G.I. Joe toy line. And we've all had them. I'm pretty sure if you racked your brain, dear listener, you would come up with a few zingers yourself. Feel free to scroll down into the comments section and add them to the chorus. But yeah, the three of us are going to come up with our top 3 misconceptions about G.I. Joe toys. What wacky, wild, and wonderful things do we think these toys could do or couldn't do when we were wee infants? Or, as might be the case, young adults. Let's see which of these misconceptions were held, like, well into our adult life. But first...
At least one of mine is going to surprise you.
Ooh, I can't wait! But in keeping with our theme of wet and wild, gentlemen, we thought we'd crack this show open by talking a little bit about playing with G.I. Joe toys in the rain. And for everyone who was in our non-video audience, that was just a delightful musical interlude. But it featured Paul and I playing in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with some recent acquisitions that we got at, before JoeCon 2018. Actually, we got them from our delightful friend Greg's place. And we were messing with them in the rain before heading to the convention that day. It was a water moccasin with a custom bat. It was a red laser bat, or I don't know, it was a medi bat. It's kind of a teal bat design versus the tiger fish piloted by Eco Warriors Flint and Paul's hand. Who won in that duel of fast boats, Paul?
Eco Warrior Flint saw his butt, dude.
Dude, I can't believe it. A named character, sort of top tier GI Joe hero, got killed. I mean, did you always kind of roll over and play dead in your childhood games, or were you just very diplomatic to me?
No, it just seemed like the right setup, and it was a fun thing to flip the boat in a glorious explosion. I was sad that I wasn't Cobra that day, but it's cool, man. Like, it was fun.
Well, of course, you know that Flint got out of that explosion alive, right?
Oh, of course he did. He always does.
Which prompts us to talk about times we spent playing with toys in the rain. And I think I've spoken approximately far too much already. So I'm going to invite my man Rob to step up to the mic. For that reason, and also the reason that whatever story he doesn't tell is the one I'll go for. I mean, I have a few in my memory, but they all involve you, Rob, so you have the chance to steal my thunder.
Oh my goodness. Well, one of my favorites is when we decided to, or you decided, I think, So your dad had the whole back alley. He was not using it for anything, and we basically converted it into its own little swamp. Kind of put sheeting down, dug it out. And I do definitely remember a couple of days when we spent outside there in the rain. Um, and like playing in the rain is such a fun experience, and it's even more fun when it's in a place that you are used to seeing being one way, but it's now completely transformed, which I think generally happens with the rain itself. But when you suddenly have this part of a place that you've always played in, and it's now completely flooded with water and filled with water, it makes things just so much more visceral. I think playing in the rain feels more real, or at least more realistic to me for some weird reason. But it's kind of, it feels more like a visceral, like you're outside, you're in the rain, you can feel the rain if you're ready for it.
Whatever do you mean, Robert?
Well, I never mind being out in the rain. Like being out in the rain is a lot of fun, but I need to like have fair warning that we're going to be playing outside in the rain. If I have no warning, I get very upset.
I can recall a time where we happened to find ourselves in a downpour, and you kind of were like, "Okay, let's go inside." And I was like, "No, this is planned." And you're like, "Steven, if you want to play in the rain, that's fine. I'm not pissed off with you for wanting to play in the rain, but I'm pissed off with you for not giving me any kind of heads up that this is what you wanted." Yeah. So good.
I think because like I dress especially for it, like I'll dress down, or I'll wear the clothes that I don't intend to wear for the rest of the weekend. When I was visiting Steven. So I had my reasons.
Practicalities, like, did we have ponchos and rain jackets, or did we just like get into our swimming costumes and go outside?
I think we just got in, as minimal clothes as possible. Like there's just no reason to kind of. Maybe we weren't like in our swim trunks necessarily, but we weren't bothered about what was getting wet while we were playing. We didn't get dressed to be like, oh, I gotta have an umbrella so I don't get wet.
Yeah, Cape Town doesn't experience like freezing rain. It's not ice cold. It's cold, but when you're playing and you're kind of down on your knees and getting up and running around, you're generating enough heat to not really mind the cool and the wet.
Yeah, you can be out there.
It's plausible that we were kind of dressing down to the extreme, or wearing raincoats. I don't know. I think we did one of the two.
I don't think we did raincoats. At least I don't think I did. I don't remember us often or ever using raincoats. I mean, even at other times when we played just after rain, I think when we did the first video at that lake there at Muizenberg, I think that day it had just been raining.
Well, this is a good segue because I was going to tell the story about the shooting of Atlantis Factor Part 1.
Yeah.
It was a pretty grey-looking day. Our initial idea to shoot that day was going to be a Ghost Striker X16 review to be shot on the other side of the bay, like looking at Table Mountain. But because it was overcast, that kind of bust that plan because Table Mountain looks at its best when it's not covered in cloud. So we decided to go to the other side of the coast and shoot in our favorite spot where we had shot the Air Commandos gliders.
Yes.
And we took the transportable tactical battle platform and a couple of helicopters, and we decided to try it, like string up the platform and fly it across the water. It was threatening to rain that whole day, but we managed to get everything done, like the helicopter sequence, the landing of the platform, and we started to feel a little bit of wet, so we decided to pack it in and head back to the car. And I was like, Robert, we could make something of this.
Yeah.
If we just did a few like glory shots of the guys scrambling around the exterior of the battle platform and manning its various stations, it could be not only a review but also like an in situ play motion style. Like this is before play motion was a thing actually for us.
No, before this it had all just been reviews. Like there might be little action sequences in the review.
Well, the idea with this one was get Shipwreck to basically give a guided tour / review of the transportable tactical battle platform. I can never get my mouth around that damn word. Bladdelplasser.
PPPS.
Thank you. You know what I'm talking about. The oil
Yeah.
rig. So I cajoled you and twisted your rubber arm, Rob, and we went out again into the drizzle and started shooting like close-ups of the radar station and the guns and the removable engine cover, maintenance covers, whatever you want to call them. And that could string together quite nicely as this, I don't know, this like very suspension of disbelief kind of adventure where it's masquerading as a review, or vice versa. The review is masquerading as an adventure.
Yeah.
And that's how it all started. But if you go back and watch that video, there's a distinct moment at which you start seeing like the frosting, the little patina of wet drizzle drops on the plastic, and then you know it's getting wet and wild up in here.
It's transitioned. We've moved away from reviews. And we're making movies. Hell yeah.
Let's hear from Paul.
Yeah, guys. So, a lot of this type of stuff happened when I was a kid, obviously, because the last time I played with Toys in the Rain was at Chattanooga with Steve. That said, I've never owned, and to this date, still do not own a raincoat, because like Rob, I also like being out in the rain. I'm a big fan of The Cure as well. I'm a total emo kid. But yeah, coming back to childhood playtime in the rain. So David and I would often play like these big GI Joe missions out sometimes in the garden and what have you. And during school holidays, I imagine this was a school holiday because it was the whole day. We were like at my house the whole day, and we had sort of got on this mission. We had gone out in the morning to the shops or something, and come back home, and we decided we're gonna do GI Joes. David went over to his place and he brought a whole bunch of Joes over, and my dad was like updating the walls and things, and he was building walls around the perimeter of the house. So we had these massive mounds of sand, and so we like to build in these like sort of caves into the sand, and it was great because we could build these huge forts. You know what it's like, you spend all the time setting it all up, right? And so we did, and then but at the same time, like, you know, it was like the cartoons. This is why I feel it was school holidays, because cartoons were on and we're like, okay, cool, KTV's about to start, and it was fine. And I think at the time Mask was on KTV, and we were like really enjoying that. Yeah. And I think BattleTech may have followed. So Dave and I were like, okay, cool, let's go inside quickly, watch Mask, and then watch BattleTech, or possibly Beast Wars, or one of the two. You know, and it was cool. And then we would sit there, and then it would start raining a little bit, and we were like, oh, the rain's not so bad, it'll be fine. We'll just, you know, let's just finish the cartoon, we'll be okay. And then it starts pissing down with rain. Okay, so we're like sitting there going, well, you know, they'll be fine, the toys will be fine. And then later on in the evening, or like late afternoon, after Power Rangers or something had been on, or whatever's, we were like, okay, well, the rain had sort of cleared up, so we go outside to go and get our toys, and yeah, it was just mud. We had to like dig our toys. My dad was a little annoyed because we completely, you know, that pile of sand is useful when it's a pile of sand, not when it's been spread over the bloody garden. And so, yeah, so I'm pretty sure I lost a good chunk of GI Joe accessories that day, missiles, what have you. I'm sure that they're actually in the wall. They're mixed in with the cement that was used for the wall. But yeah, David and I were digging out, yeah, Joe parts in the mud. And then also, you know, because, you know, Dave and I, like, we go, okay, well, you know what, we can't bring, like, we're full of mud now. So my dad's like, use the hose pipe, clean yourselves off. Well, so then that ended up being a whole adventure of like shooting GI Joes with like high pressure hose pipes and seeing how far they flip off the rain. So good times. And then we eventually got the mud off, and yeah. Anyway, so that's my one good playing in the rain story.
Bloody brilliant. Gents, just as a diversion and perhaps an advertisement break, what do you know about Grindstone Toys, Callsign Longbow?
I know that they exist. I know that they're doing cool stuff for RoboSkull. No. But I know that they're doing some cool pieces for the RoboSkull campaign. And I do know that they have had a Kickstarter recently.
Oh yes.
You know more than I
They're-
do. I just thought they made cool like GI Joe related like accessories.
Okay, well, they are making figures, and their campaign, which launched in May of 2022, funded in 6 hours to completion.
Wow.
They're now working
Wow.
on stretch goals. I haven't checked the latest total. This information will, of course, be out of date the second I've stopped recording, so I'm not going to give the dollars. But they've unlocked this guy. His name's Outlaw, and he looks very familiar with his baby blue jumpsuit and dark colored body armor. So this is a no-brainer kind of purchase for yours truly. But the Callsign Longbow is set in 1986. It is set in the Cold War. The bad guys, the good guy leader is an ex-Green Beret, now a member of Longbow, and the bad guys are Soviet Russia.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Amazing. Yeah. And anyone who is listening to this who doesn't know about Callsign Longbow, I urge you to scroll down and check out the link in the description below to their Kickstarter and see what they're all about. But it is going to be the authentic 3.75
Sorry.
O-ring style
This dude.
action figure. And yes, this that I'm currently flashing on the screen is a stretch goal. He's a henchman who's wearing a tracksuit. Comes with a Molotov cocktail and an AK-47.
Oh.
I mean, this is a figure that like should have existed in the 80s.
Really?
And we're
Is
only
it
getting him
Adidas
now.
tracksuit? It's asking
well,
for a friend.
How many stripes does it have? I think it might be trademark infringement if they use the 3 stripes.
Yeah, of course.
Maybe it's
That's
too
why
close.
Candy has 2.
Exactly. Think about it. It's probably pretty authentic that way, anyways. Because like, what Soviet era henchman would be wearing like a non-rip-off Adidas? You know, this is a Hong Kong. What do you call it?
A knockoff.
Knockoff. Thank you. A knockoff
Yeah.
Adidas
Knockoff.
tracksuit. You know, those
Adidas.
really
Adidas.
cheap feeling ones. They're like school
I can't
tracksuit
believe I haven't
material.
seen this figure till now. This is great. I want him.
Great.
Because
Yeah,
this throws me back to a joke in Grand Theft Auto 4, where Nico Bellic, the main character, he's like chirping his one cousin, or he's chirping somebody. He's like, "Why do you have to look like a Russian stereotype with your tracksuit and gold chains?"
Well,
There he is.
we love a stereotype here, let me tell you. And it fulfills a niche that hasn't existed for a while. Like, I've oftentimes thought, let me put together a hostage situation for the Joes to defuse, and had to wind up using like every beachhead figure that I possess. Because, like, just balaclava looking baddies is something that doesn't exist unless they actually look distinctively Cobra. So if you want a third faction, if you want something more informal, yeah, man, this is the stretch goal to like go all in on and just army build. Figures are gonna run you about $25 a piece, excluding shipping. But that
is not
ain't
bad.
bad, man. Yeah, I say that's kind of up there with what Hasbro's putting out. And this is an independent. Grindstone Toys this is their flagship brand, the Callsign Longbow series of toys. They have great plans, and it all starts here. So if you want to be part of the success story and get your hands on some pretty awesome figures in 2023, hit that Kickstarter.
Heck
I was
yeah,
delighted
think-
to be on an episode of Sergeant Slaughter's Slaughterhouse, which is currently available, where we interviewed Troy McKee and John Kukovic, the 2 guys responsible for Grindstone Toys, and it was a very,
boom.
very interesting chat. Got some inside scoop on a lot of things that I felt I hadn't heard mentioned in other interviews. But they've
Do
been
they
doing
have
the
gummy
rounds.
hands?
Yes, they do. Gummy
goodness.
hands, and
That's cool.
they have wrist articulation. So every figure is
Yes.
designed to have just that little break between their uniform and their gloves. So it's very well hidden, but it does have a swivel at the wrist. So
That's
gummy
also
hands,
something-
swivel wrists. Guns are made of hard plastic, but helmets, straps, hats, masks, they're also kind of flexible.
And Operation
so-
Recall is also doing that with their O-ring figures. They've got a swivel swivel wrist battle grip.
Look,
Because
it's a winning
the
formula,
tagline
and
is.
immediately
Yeah.
kind of like, I hate to admit it. I mean, they are the one advancement that I would happily add to every O-ring figure I possess. Kind of wish
It's
they
an
did
evolution.
have that. Yeah, yeah, they kind of
Yeah.
have shown up my my chosen toys by
But
one
that's a
articulation
good
point.
thing. I know
Mm.
it's like it's a little bit like regrettable, but at the same time, it's a good thing. It's like thank you. Like that is something that we want, and that I think every fan wants, but didn't know they wanted until they had it. And on that same thing, or by that same token, like the hands are going to be nice and grippy, and they got the swivel wrists, which is super super cool. Um, like I take it you quizzed him about the plastic. I take it there's a bit of. You asked if the plastic will pass the touch test.
Yes,
I
it's
just
that's
yeah.
sort of hard ABS for the most part.
Ooh, very nice.
The figures will be on card, or the sort of the main release figures will be on card. The exclusives will be bagged with a red cardboard, well, with a red file card and accessories included in the bag. So it'll be
Oh,
the same
nice.
Brilliant.
experience as buying Carter Joe's on the one hand, and then getting mail away exclusives on the other hand.
Very nice.
Very,
And I think it's
very
100.
cool.
And I think it's 100 USD that nets you any four figures.
Hmm.
And now that they're hitting their stretch goals, or that they've hit some of their stretch goals, I think, I mean, they originally only had four figures, but I think it's something like 6 or 7 figures that are available now that you can choose from. I'm a bit
Oh
fuzzy on that. I'm not
yes.
looking at the
Oh
page right now.
gosh, how do you
Yeah.
choose?
Right?
And if you wanted something of a bit more of a sci-fi bent, well, my friends, look no further
Yes.
than the Ghost, the
Or
Steel Web
I want that.
Infiltrator. Mm. He
Oh.
is a very armored, very techy looking dude. Gives you some reuse parts from the Skeletron O-ring
Mm.
figure, but
hmm,
does it up in this beautiful purple
Oh,
with
so nice.
neon green highlights, sort of technical glow. I'd say, yeah, this is the standout for me, obviously, and a kind of a must-have figure.
Him and that like Russian henchman dude. They're like right up there for me, man.
Oh yes. And then the last thing of note, I suppose, is they are going to produce the
Oh, cool.
Marauder Task Force body, like the sort of the basic guy with sort of some add-on parts, various pouches that you would have to plug in on the Marauder Task Force body. Well, here they are kind of set into the mold, but it is the Desert Ops Marauder Task Force figure reimagined as a O-ring style retro figure.
I
So
think
it
that's
has to be
great.
seen to be believed, friends. But it's a lovely symphony of new versus old and beautiful collaboration between Marauder and Grindstone.
Yeah, good to see that kind of thing happening. That's
Oh
very good.
yes.
So
Which way are you
that's a
leaning in
future.
terms of the Kickstarter, Paul? Are you wanting to army build out a certain type, or well, I say army
I
build at $25 a pop. It's a little bit prohibitive, but
I like I kind of like the $100 deal at the moment. I've got
oh,
two figures there that I definitely love, that I have to have. Initially, it was the one that I love, and then the three others that I thought, okay, well, I'm gonna like them because they're gonna, I'll find a space for them. But as it stands now, I'm starting to build up that I'm trying to keep it. I'm gonna cap myself at 4. I don't think I'm gonna army build. If I do army build, I might get 2 of those balaclava dudes though. As you mentioned
mm.
earlier, for like hostage situations, that kind of stuff, it's actually really cool to have those. That kind of, looking character in your
I
play.
wish there
But
was a way of getting them palette swapped. Like have a guy in a blue, have a guy in a red, and have a guy in, I don't know, a green jumpsuit or tracksuit.
so many
Yeah.
options.
But I suppose a
but
customizer's brush will do the
That will fix
duties.
it. That will
Mm.
definitely fix it for anyone who wants it like that.
yeah,
Mm.
but cool. But yeah, I think misconceptions are on the table for us.
Let's do it. I think I'm going to take first blood by saying that when I looked at the Cobra Bug in the 1991 European catalog, which was doing the rounds at the time, it was firstly love at first sight, but secondly, I thought to myself, wow, this is quite a considerable vehicle. It's large, it's got lots of visual intrigue, it's a submersible. And my previous experience with kind of amphibious craft was the Warthog, which I don't know if you can practically do it, but at least theoretically, you can maneuver a figure into all portions of the Warthog. Like there's a crawl space basically between the back section and the sort of the operator's seat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
effectively, the entire Warthog interior is interconnected. Well, my friends, my misconception when it comes to the bug was I thought that it was all interconnected. The back hatch, the side hatches, the front hatches. I thought that you could basically puppet a figure through the entire craft into whatever was occupying the central section. Hopefully, like a nerve center with computer screens and, I don't know, decontamination chambers and various greeblies that they can interact with. I guess I was kind of influenced by Star Wars, the Millennium Falcon, or Star Trek, and I expected this toy to do a hell of a lot more than it actually could, which is quaint. It does a hell of a lot anyway, and its limitations are kind of on the tin. There's no ways it could have had this like, nerve center in the center of it, but in my child mind, fantasizing about this toy on Christmas Eve of, I think it was 1992, when I was about to get it. Well, no, it was 1993. Christmas Eve 93. And I was about to get it the next day. And I was like, oh, it's going to be so exciting, like discovering what's in that central section. Okay, there wasn't
There's
anything.
nothing. There's nothing
exactly.
restricted
Boo.
there. But that's a shared misconception that we both
Oh.
had. Because, yeah, I saw this toy in CNA at Cresta in a box. It blew my mind. I was like, oh my god, this thing's amazing. I have to have it. And naturally, I had this catalog because it came with the Warthog. Well, yeah, I must have because it came with the Warthog. And then I went
No,
into...
it came with the Fang too. You got it with your
Yes,
Fang
that's
2.
where where it came from. Yeah, and so
Yep,
I poured
Steve
over
knows
images.
Paul's collection better than Paul does.
No, I couldn't remember which one.
No.
Who this catalog came from. So
Super nerd over here knows everything.
yes, thank you, super nerd. Anyway, so like, and I do this even still today. By the way, like if I see something I'm excited about, I go like nuts. I go online, I look at catalogs, I watch YouTube videos about it. I try to find out every single thing I can about it. It's a great thing. Even after I've got it, I sometimes do that. And with this bug image, this was the image.
I've got the toy on my shelf, but instead I'm going to watch a YouTube video about it.
Yeah, but I mean, I do stuff like that. Yeah, because like it's just
I think we all
interesting.
do,
Like
actually.
we do, right? And I had that same misconception. I thought, okay, cool, those little yellow hatches open, and you could put guys like inside it. You know, like you could go in from the inside there, and then it was maybe somehow connected to the front section. And I was like, that is amazing, because I had a Warthog, so you know, I figured it was the same thing. I wasn't disappointed when I got it because I would then find out that you could put the jet ski in those yellow portions, and that was really cool. And then at some point, I think I even like cramped up dudes in there and Trojan horse this thing, like rah, cobra, you know.
It's not a comfortable ride.
Nah, it's sure not. It's like being in a car boot. But yeah, so that but I share
For
that
me,
with
I had
you.
a different misconception with the bug because I don't remember
yeah?
Stephen not having both the bug and the hammerhead. So with the hammerhead, you can detach all of these things on the outside. They all come off, you know, and they become their own little like submersibles and stuff. So
Yeah.
for me, I thought that the little side things on the bug were actually removable because they look like they should be.
Yeah.
But they actually aren't. Like I'm like, okay, I can take them off the hammerhead, but I can't take them off the bug. What's going on here?
I feel like that maybe at some stage of the design process that absolutely was a thing.
I think it definitely was.
Why else can you put an operator on the engine nacelles? Like it's clearly got a screen, it's got the handles, like the guys writing it in the box art. Like, yeah, why is this not a detachable side submersible?
Because it's so similar to the Hammerhead that, I mean, it has all these things that already come off it. There's at least 3 things you can take off it. Why not those? But
Well, in
maybe they
terms of
just
the
felt like it.
lifespan of the line, the bug did come first by a fairly large margin. I mean, certainly large enough for the Hammerhead designs to not be in existence yet when the bug hit toy shops.
Yeah.
It's
You
conceivable.
touched on the hammerhead.
Ooh, I always love to touch on the Hammerhead. But in the same breath, I thought the Raider was like an Imperial Walker. I thought that those little support legs on the front of the Raider made it like a half track, half AT-AT or AT-ST.
Well, if that's all you have to go off, like, what are you supposed to think? Is this one picture?
Okay. Anyway, I feel like an idiot, but I suppose that's the beauty of this topic. We're exposing those things that we were stupid and thought as children.
Well, I
who's
think
next?
I'll go next. I think a pretty fundamental one, at least I'd like to think a lot of people had some sort of misconception when they were first introduced to GI Joes. I thought GI Joes was just a toy line. Which is strange because I come from, at least when I was a kid before I started getting GI Joes, I come from collecting He-Man. I mean, like does a 5-year-old collect He-Man? I think their parents obviously buy whatever. He-Man and Thundercats. And they had the cartoons. So, I mean, the thought never entered my mind that GI Joe had their own cartoon or they had their own comic series. I think it was meeting Stephen. I mean, Stephen, I'm sure you must have had at least some of the comic books for GI Joe when I met you. And it just blew my mind that it's not just a toy line. Because it doesn't feel, you're looking at the toys, they don't feel necessarily like they have like this huge story behind them. Because I feel like with He-Man and Thundercats, it's so black and white, it's so obvious, like, or at least maybe because I'd watched the cartoons, it's like, of course, there's other stories about these guys. They're not just toys; they're characters in a show. So for me, fundamentally, at least initially, I just thought GI Joe was a toy line, and there was no associated media, there was nothing that attached to it. So it definitely was mind blowing when I meet Steven and he's got all these cool toys. He's got dozens and dozens of Joes and the what are they called again?
Comic books.
Comic books, yes. And
that thing that occupies that place that you work.
Which is crazy because I owned a couple of comic books, but also being like 6 or 7, you're not reading much. So like I was used to like just watching stuff on television.
That's why it's got pictures, mate.
Hey.
I got answer for everything.
Teaching me about the comic books.
Like again. I'll tell you about your own work.
I feel like I'm 5 years old again. Steven's ruining my life.
Oh, not 5,
probably
at
6 or
5.
7.
I ruined your life way later than that.
You made it much better as well.
But you make an interesting point. I think things like He-Man and the Masters of the Universe and Thundercats, what is it about them? Maybe the kind of the mythological presentation, or maybe that the key characters were such a tight ensemble with one kind of lead character and then his mates.
Yeah.
Whereas
I think so in both cases.
Certainly the series that we were getting, which was the kind of 88, 89, 90, 91 series, these guys were so anonymous and so nondescript.
Yeah,
like
it's just a whole bunch of guys. Like,
yeah, you could single
don't
one
even know
out
who's
and make
good or
him
bad
your
necessarily.
protagonist. But it didn't feel like the core group of a cast of characters that made up a show. So
yeah,
I
it
guess
doesn't jump out at you straight away that like these are characters in a story. But each character does have obviously its own story. I mean, the file card like lays out an entire story about these guys. I don't. Yeah, so that's probably my major misconception was GI Joe's just toys. No, tiny little Robert. It's much more than that.
Little commercial break from the Berg Force. Gaz says his misconception about the whale was he thought it really floated until their friend had one and it sunk.
Oof. We definitely
Followed
thought a lot
by-
of things could float that don't float.
Hi, Hans Charles. At Gaz, it doesn't float. But the commercial, though. From Hans Charles.
They lied. They lied. Ah,
Hey,
yes. And Gaz, once
shenanigans.
again, when I saw the Mauler as a kid, I thought it was an RC. Huh? Thanks to Mauler Joe, it now is. But yes, out of the box,
really
that
cool.
thing could just go forwards and backwards and left and right if you had your hand on it, which kind of defeats the point. Yeah, man. And then Hans, classic. I had a terrible misconception about the GI Joe General. I thought it sucked. I was very wrong.
Which segues nicely into one of my misconceptions about GI Joe.
Ooh.
Yeah. I have 3 of these, by the way. So I don't know if I'm going to spill all 3 now or if you've got more, Steve.
Oh, I think we all have 3, if I'm not
Oh,
mistaken.
weird
Okay,
times,
good.
If
my
I'm not
friend.
under a misconception.
So when Dave and I had gleaned over images of the General in the catalogs of GI Joe, we were like enamored by it. I mean, it was like this really big vehicle. There was a bug, there was a warthog. We had lots of fun with that. We were like, wow, the General is just that, but extra. It was just super cool. And the thought that we always had, and until very recently, until I'd say my 20s, when I got Mark Bellomo's guide, I honestly thought the G.I. Joe General was the biggest G.I. Joe toy ever made. I was like, this is the biggest vehicle ever made. David and I would when you have these conversations like, if you ever win like $1 million, what would you buy? And the G.I. Joe General was up there. It was like, we're going to get the G.I. Joe General because it's huge and we can have so much fun with it and buy all this other Lego and crap. And when I opened Mark Bellomo's guide, I was greeted by the USS Flag, who we all know is the biggest production toy ever made. Ever. And yeah, that my world was shattered. I was like, what? This thing's been around this whole time and I never knew that there was a G.I. Joe aircraft carrier and that it was indeed this massive, plastic offering from the gods, that it was. And that even under further investigation, I found, okay, yes, the General is still a bit bigger than the Terradrome, but not by much, at least from my mental recollection of seeing one.
I don't think it's as tall as a Terradrome.
No, definitely not.
It's
No.
anybody's guess as to which has more plastic in it, because the General is kind of squat and spread out.
Yeah. Never mind the Defiant. I mean,
There's definitely
and
more
the
plastic in the Defiant. Okay.
Oh, hell yes.
It's plastic wrapped in plastic, topped with plastic, with the plastic
Yes.
underneath it. Yeah.
Exactly. So for this whole, I just felt like such an idiot that I never knew about the flag. It's just so stupid. And yeah, that was a misconception I had. I thought the General was the biggest G.I. Joe toy ever. And it still has a bigger place in my heart than the flag, I tell you. But yeah, that was my first one. So I figured I'd go in with the sort of weaker one of the two, because the other two are quite fun. So I'll leave that up to. Let's see what Steve's next misconception is.
Okay, guys. So my buddy and I at the time, and this was, I'm gonna say 1992. I was 7, and we were debating which GI Joe to get. Now these were slightly higher priced because they were sub teams. The one was Eco Warriors, and the other was Air Commandos. He settled on Cloudburst from Air Commandos. I settled on Clean Sweep from the Eco Warriors because I could not wrap my 7-year-old mind over the fact that it said that the weapons really shoot water. And if you look at the card, the carded figure, what weapon is shooting? I mean, the guy only has one weapon on the card art, right? And I thought to myself, how can that little green pistol possibly shoot water? How could they fit the technology into such a small plastic piece that it can shoot water? What I hadn't realized was the water shooting thing was actually the toy, the plastic, was covering up its appearance on the card art. So I didn't see the stream of water coming off that stupid yellow sludge-sucking robot. And I immediately assumed that the only weapon that could possibly shoot the water was the pistol. I learned very quickly that I was wrong.
Oh, clean sweep. Hey, you had us mystified, hiding your water squirting gimmick behind your actual water squirting gimmick. Random.
Well, it's very misleading card art to a 7-year-old, as I say. But this was a
I feel
misconception
you.
that was immediately dispelled when I ripped the figure off the card and held up the little plastic piece and thought, nah, there's not even a nozzle
I just
for
want
the
to
water to
comment.
squirt out of.
I just want to comment on this picture before you switch it off. You know, looking at, I actually didn't realize Clean Sweep had such a smirk on his face. Look at that
The-
snort. His moustache. No,
Ah.
on the figurine. Yeah, like let's get a zoom in there. Yeah, look at that.
Right.
He's got like a little bit of a smirk. Like the one part of his, I don't know if it's like an error of parallax or whatever. And then he's like on this specific image, he's grabbing his crotch. So it's
Well,
just
you know a thing or
it's
two about
great.
lenses, Paul. Maybe towards
Yeah.
the edge of the margin, things are slightly warped.
Yeah,
Maybe.
there's probably lens distortion happening there.
Maybe
or something.
there's
yeah.
a little bit of a factory error on his moustache paint. I don't know. I don't think mine has quite a smirk.
I'm gonna grab mine out of the box just now after the show and have a
Very
look
good.
and see if Clean
Why not
Sweep,
do it
because
now,
his
Paul?
helmet is always on because it's gonna make a lot of noise.
Oh. I'll
Okay, fine, I'll do it. We'll turn this into an ASMR episode. Hold on, Paul brings us ASMR. Let me just take off my headset.
Oh my
That's the
goodness.
cupboard.
Bob had a great misconception. I will recall it now. Based on card backs, I knew nothing of Snake Eyes and thought Quick Kick was the main karate guy of GI Joe. Ah, come on,
Very
you can be forgiven
interesting.
for that. That's an easy mistake to make. I mean, Quick Kick just screams that stereotype, that trope, whereas Snake
Yeah.
Eyes looks like just a badass, sneaky dude.
Ninjarati.
Ninjarati.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm gonna pop off his head. Ooh, yeah, he
Hey
does
now.
kind of have a little bit of a smoke.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Well, him and good old Ozone, they have very heavily character faces. You know, they do not look like the dashing heroes of the GI Joe line to that point.
It's a
They look like guys that have PhDs, which is perhaps the point. They spent
No,
their
PhDs
fair
instead of
share of
PTSD.
time in study as opposed to on the battlefield.
Yeah, they're on the battlefield of science.
Rob, hit us with another misconception.
Misdirection. I will misdirect you. So it's probably quite a straightforward one. As I said, I came from a background of He-Man and Thundercats, and my ideas were mainly based on like sci-fi and space and aliens and stuff like that. So one of my earliest figures was Target, and this was also having not being able to read. I had no idea what what his story was. And just like looking at him, and I think my mom might have like read me the file code maybe like once, but very quickly. And all I got was like meteor showers, biosystems, and some rubbish, some guy called Destroy or something. So I always thought until I could actually read a couple of years later that
Paul, you need a
Target was an
haircut,
actual was it.
It's the second coming up in here. Sorry, Paul has switched on his video and is now
Oh,
showing
hell
us
yeah.
clean sweep smirk, which I can attest to the fact that
is
yes, he
very
does have a kind of
smirky.
a raised right side to his lip.
He definitely is. He's
Lovely.
like. I think Paul,
It's gonna
Paul's
take
trying
me
to
all
do like
day
a
to
My
clean up
Chemical
this
Romance
shit.
thing. He's very lead singer-ish. Nice. So I thought Target was an alien. Initially, he was some sort of space alien. His commander was Destroy or something like that, and that's who he was. He was an alien, and I played with him appropriately, until I could eventually read. And then and also I suppose meeting Steven and realizing, oh wait a minute, these guys are all based on Earth. Yes, the guy Toxo Viper looks like he's also a space alien, but actually he isn't. He's just a normal dude in a suit.
And Target's popularity plummeted shortly after that, didn't it?
Went
Hey,
straight down into the the dirt.
it's like, oh, this is just a guy in a suit.
This is a dude
Forget
in a
that.
suit. Come
The
on,
helmet.
it's like when I discovered that Deadpool couldn't do all the cool shit I made him do.
Yes. To anyone not in the loop, when Rob saw the Deadpool action figure from Toy Biz, immediately fell in love with it, but had no idea the guy's backstory or
It's great
skill
design.
set, powers, whatever. Just made him a magic wielder / telepath
Could do anything.
/ yeah.
That's a huge misconception. Non GI Joe related.
Deadpool was having battles on the astral plane. Yeah.
Wow.
He could do anything.
Which is funny because Deadpool has done all of those things.
He really has eventually have done that.
Rob,
but,
you
like,
appreciate, but I have a theory that you just wanted to play with whatever figure was powerful enough to get you from having to be down on your knees playing like on the ground. So anything that you could like hold in your hand and just walk around the house going. You're
I was an old man,
imagining,
even
like,
at 9 or
orbs of
10 years old.
energy. Yeah, exactly.
Camera pan.
Yeah,
I
this
feel like
is
Al
high
was the one who
drama
never wanted to
happening.
get on his knees, though. I think he usually liked standing more than I did.
Yeah. Meanwhile,
Oh.
I had the kind of the brawlers, so I had to get down there.
Yeah, you were like right in there.
Wolverine, Sabretooth, Venom.
You can't
see what's going
on from up there. Yes, I can. I'm Deadpool. I can see everything.
So
Bastard.
we got a great question from Hans Chow. He goes, at GI Joburg, speak honestly, at what age did you start reading the file cards properly? Gentlemen?
So I got my first GI Joe comic book in, I'm gonna say 1993. So I was 8, and I was probably deciphering the text on the backs of the file cards at 7. I mean, yeah, 7 late into my second year of school. I think
Okay.
that's when you start being able to read books, no? But I mean, if we got started on the file cards, we'd come up with a long list of misconceptions because, like, they were just highfalutin words that you misspelled in your mind. Like, offhand, I can't think of an example, but I just know that there were words that, like, when I said them out loud, my parents corrected me, and I was like,
Oh, that's lucky.
okay, right.
Yeah.
Like, I think Larry Harmer used awry, AWRY, in
Yeah.
one of the comic books, and I always pronounce that Ori.
Ori.
Oh, our plans went Ori. Oh dear, that's when things went Ori. So there's an example for you, but that's not a file card example. But yes, to answer your question, Hans, I think by 8 I was definitely sitting on the bog reading through my stack of file cards. Over
I can-
and over and over.
I can distinctly remember at the age of about 5, 6.
Whoa.
Because I was in grade 1.
Wow.
Yeah, I
Genius
was reading.
crowd over here.
Good lord.
No, man. But I did have a very young reading age. Like, but I remember reading Deep Six's file card quite a bit and like asking my mom a lot of stuff, like some of the, like, what does this word mean, and whatever's, which is why I think we ended up getting a dictionary in the same year that I'd like go through and check up the meanings
She
of
was
some
like,
of the stuff.
I can't anymore. This is too much. Paul.
She was just like,
Stop."
you're irritating the shit out of me now. Like, because that was like the thing that triggered me. Then I was like going through everything that I had that I could read. I was like, oh, cool, there's words. And like reading a lot of stuff.
As
But
I
yeah,
recall,
so-
that file card bangs on about his hobby for recording whale songs and stuff. Like, for a 5-year-old, what does that even mean?
mean. Exactly. And then I also remember Ambush's one as well, quite distinctly. Because of the whole, he would hide away in his back garden for like days and nobody would find him and stuff like that. So, yeah, I read them at quite a young age. I loved that stuff. It was cool. I mean, and I've said it before on the show.
Ice Viper's fucking file card goes on about the fact that they have their beards depilated. What? I think in my mind I was like, depilated?
Yeah,
Depilated?
he was not talking down to the kids who bought these toys at all.
Which is good.
And
No,
it's
it's
taken me a while
fantastic.
to come around to the fact that they didn't grow out their beards as ice vipers. No, having your beard depilated means you had your hair removed, which I think it's a cream like that kills the follicles and I don't know, makes the hair fall out. And the reason
Probably
being they
grew
didn't
back
want
somewhere
their
else.
beards to ice up.
Yeah.
Like, okay, I thought you wanted to grow out any fuzz that you have if you're in cold weather, but just like, what were these concepts they were putting into the file cards? Like, that's madness. What child is going to get their head around that?
But
Paul,
it got you
apparently.
asking questions, hopefully.
Yeah. Expand your
But
brain.
as a bonus, let's do a quick bonus round before we get to mine.
Oh my God.
What is a word? Because actually Hans brought up a very cool thing. What is a GI Joe name that you had trouble pronouncing as a kid? Like you couldn't quite like get your head around it.
Oh. It's going to take some thinking. Look, I know that I used to call Decepticons deceptions.
Yeah.
Like when I
remember
saw the
that.
word Decepticon on the paper, on the card back, on the box, whatever, I immediately went deception. And when a kid tried to convince me that it was Decepticon and not deception on the
talking
playground, I was like, "You idiot! That's not even a word. These guys are deceptions because they transform into things to hide themselves. They are deceiving you. They are deceptions, idiot."
Little did you know that you were half right.
I was whole wrong, but I was passionate about spelling, misspelling, as it were. Yeah, so that's my
Yeah.
entry. Not Joe, but it's a goodie.
And Rob?
Gosh, I'm not actually sure. I think I was always very good at pronouncing everything. I'd like to think. I mean, we didn't own him, but like Norgahide, I probably like. Probably for fun, I probably was a Gnorgahide, but
All right.
It's an
Interesting that you
intimidating
mentioned
word even
Norgahide.
today. It's an intimidating word because I always have pause for thought every time I write it out. I'm like,
yeah, like how does this
Right.
word work? It's like night. It's like why is there a K in front of that word?
great
What
one
is a
from
G?
Bob in the chats. Absolutely right. Grenadiers. I called them grenaders or grenade ears, which I still hear people to this day calling them the iron grenaders.
Oh, interesting.
Hmm.
But was yours also Gnorgahide, Paul?
Mine was Norgahide as well. And to give you guys a bit of a backstory, not you guys, because you guys know this, but for our audience, I grew up in a household that is predominantly Afrikaans speaking, although my mom and I do speak English to each other a lot. My mother is actually from Belgium, so English is actually like her third language, technically. Although I think, to be fair, Flemish is now her third language. But when she came to South Africa, she couldn't speak a word of English. And so there were a lot of words that were like, I would read, but I wouldn't read out loud. So my mom never had an opportunity to like correct me. And then when I did give her the opportunity to correct me, sometimes she couldn't always like figure it out. And Norgahide was just one of those that just, from my mom's non-English brain, escaped her. And you must understand what made this interesting was David had come into my life at about 8 years old, and he wasn't able to speak fluent English either. I mean, he's Cantonese, and he was also shy about his English. So he was learning English through GI Joe as well, like through pronouncing character names and things. So Norgahide was so badly mispronounced, like, oh my god. Okay,
Can
like
you recall an
like,
example?
oh dude, I just can't. It's like I think my brain is so hardwired not to say it incorrectly anymore. Because I think I broke it. Like when I got it right, I was like Norgahide, 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 that kind of thing. It got into my
Aw.
head. Because also fundamentally, I think my first words were also Afrikaans. So there were certain things, like as a kid, I would still say in a funny way, like woof. Anyway,
Oh, for some reason, I thought Beachhead's name was Peachhead. Because Beachhead sounds ridiculous, but Peachhead sounds even more ridiculous. I just thought maybe he's got a funny send-up name like Hattrick Lamond or whatever. Like Peachhead. He's got a Peachhead, guys. Because
So yeah,
code
man.
names shouldn't necessarily be like a cool sounding thing. Sometimes you get sidled
Sometimes
with
they're
Goose
just silly.
and not Maverick. You know, like
I think
I guess
I
in the
think
case
in
of
the
Peach
military,
Kid, it was a joke.
I think in the
Yeah.
military, your code name is always like embarrassing.
That's why he's always
because
so rough on everyone else.
yeah,
Where's Buttface 69 when you need him? I bet that
yeah,
was his
yeah.
call sign. Yep, yep, yep.
So
Peach Kid.
onto my misconception, because the name mispronunciation is kind of, in a weird way, it's kind of a misconception. But anyway, onto my next misconception. So when Stephen and I met, one of the first vintage vehicles he showed me when he brought over a whole bunch of toys to the store was the Phantom X19, which blew my mind. I was like, oh my word, this jet is huge. It is far bigger than I thought it was, than I actually thought it was. I didn't realize it was that big. For some reason, in my mind, couldn't quite get the scale of it in my head. I was just, it was just this big hunk of plastic awesomeness. And I was like, that's cool. Not long after that, I would get myself a Night Raven. I just want to show a picture of the Night Raven because, in case somebody doesn't know what it looks like. But I ordered myself a Night Raven from, I think it was Dallas Vintage Toys. It's the one that normally sits behind me in the study. And I also didn't realize that this craft was as big as it was, because when I got it, I was like, oh my god, this jet is huge. Now, remember something. I, until this point, had never owned any GI Joe jets. And the only GI Joe jets that I had seen a lot in catalogs was the X-19, the Sky Raven, and the Liquidator and stuff. And the Liquidator, for some reason, those shots, I think it's because there's a hand in the shot, the scale of them is immediately like sort of recognizable. They're quite small. So I figured all the jets in GI Joe were about that size. So when I got my Night Raven, I was blown away by the sheer magnitude of this thing. Because I was like, oh my word, this thing is massive. Which, it's a great thing to say when you get a jet. And so for the longest time, I didn't realize it was this big. And I'm so glad that it is. I'm so glad that it's just such a huge hunk of plastic. And thank you, Hasbro, for making it.
I can relate. Look, we didn't get the Sky Striker first time round. We didn't get the Raven first time round. The only like substantial GI Joe jet that I recall seeing on shelves was the Sky Raven, and it was an enormous flat box. Like when you saw it in person for the first time, only then did you understand like this thing it's considerable. So yeah, man, getting those toys for the first time, like it does kind of really immediately expand your understanding of GI Joe as a toy line. Like this isn't just little figures and tanks and helicopters, like dinky things that you can hold with one hand. No.
Yeah.
This thing requires two-handed support, or maybe a team of children to cart this thing around. Like it's a big deal. Yeah.
Cool, man. And what is your
Very
last one, dude?
cold.
Until Steven got the Mobat, I didn't know that any GI Joe vehicles were motorized at all. Like he got it and it's like it moves on its own. What? This is absolutely insane. Because
What sorcery is this?
It's not like it's because it's from 1982, so it kind of makes sense that they're trying out new things in the very first assortment. Because everything else is like hand cranked. Like you turn the Dragonfly, the rotors, you turn the Mobat rotors. Everything else is just wheels. You move them around yourself. But like seeing the Mobat moving on its own is just, or you make it move. It was absolutely wild. I just never realized that they thought to include actual like electronics in their toys. I think maybe before that, the only thing I could think of was the flag having the speaker thing. And then, of course, then Stephen goes ahead and forgets the other motorized one, the Mauler. And I think by that point, I knew that the Mauler could move on its own. But yeah, I'd never realized before Stephen got the Mobat that GI Joe had any motorized vehicles in their entire lineup. That required batteries to work.
It does
So that
feel out
was-
of character because
It
you
does
you
feel
do
weird.
get loads of tanks that aren't motorized. Why are these two special?
Yeah, it's weird because they could technically have done it with basically all of them. Like the Wolverine, any tracked thing, you could do it. it's just fascinating that I mean, the first 82 I can understand because it's a new line. They're trying out all these new things, but then 3 years later they come back to it. In 85 with the Mauler, and then after that, nothing else really that requires batteries.
Yeah,
Yeah, very
Truth.
true.
So it's interesting. Yeah. So yeah, that was a big misconception for me, where I thought the entire line was just hand operated, but nope, there's things out there that require batteries.
Hand job operated. They're all hand jobs.
Yeah, hand dropped.
Hand
You're
job.
a weirdo. My final and most grandiose misconception, well, we'll get into why it's so grandiose, was around the character of Red Dog. Now, my buddy, Lyle, of the time, was A-team rugby, and he gravitated towards this guy because of the sports theme. I assumed the references on his file card was to rugby, Union Rugby, as played by South Africa, the nations of New Zealand and Australia, amongst others. But those are the ones on the top of the hill. In no particular order, of course. Anyway, I assumed that the references were to the game of rugby. And that's why Lyle enjoyed this figure so much, because not only was he kicking goals, he was kicking the tar out of Cobra, and that was great fun. Also, Red Dog was sold single carded in South Africa on the Action Force, or the GI Joe, the Action Force card. So he got this guy and not the other two renegades. So his thing was this game of rugby. You'd think that this was a misconception that was dispelled in later life, but, gentlemen, the Mandela effect is real, because I, to this day, up until very, very recently, thought that there was a variant file card in existence where the references to him being a barefoot place kicker was about Union Rugby. I found out that file cards were localized. Like a UK file card calls Flint Daniel Fairborn and not Dashel Fairborn. Long Range's file card refers to putting a shell in the goal mouth at Wembley instead of whatever the American file card equivalent was. So I figured that just like that, Red Dog's file card was localized to take out the references to American football and insert Union Rugby. But nary a file card could be found. This year, in fact, I was laboring under this misconception, and I was searching furiously for a file card that referred to rugby and not football, but couldn't find it. Can you blame me, guys? Because the guy comes from Samoa, and anyone who
That's a
knows
big
Union
rugby
Rugby,
nation.
absolutely, all the Pacific Islands, Fiji, Samoa, Tonga, they are rugby heavy, man. Like, they eat, sleep, drink, breathe the stuff, and they are serious threats on the world stage. Like, Fiji have been the rugby sixes like champions. They just dominate. They're unstoppable, for instance. So can you blame me for thinking, almost to this day, in fact, that there was a file card out there where the references were changed to rugby?
I don't blame
Imagine
you for
my surprise. Self-proclaimed GI Joe expert over here. Got it wrong, big time.
that. I always thought it was Australian rugby.
Like Aussie rules, okay. League.
Yeah, Aussie rules. Yeah.
Actually, there's a difference. I still haven't discerned it. After living here for 2.5 years, I don't know the difference between league and Aussie rules. I should get my wife to explain it again. But yeah, that's me.
I suppose that's what makes him a
embarrassment.
renegade. He liked American football more than he did rugby.
Well, he lives in the United States, I think. Like,
Yeah.
the file card does go on to say that he then became a stuntman in B movies. So I assume he was working in Hollywood. So yes, he was born in Samoa, moved to the United States, played football there, and then became a stuntman. Nowhere in the interim did he play rugby union. I mean, he probably played it as a kid, but didn't play professionally.
I just saw this picture in our brand
Oh.
chat This guy looks
Hans
cool.
has got my back. He says, well, my headcanon isn't changing. Red dog equals rugby.
Hey.
Thank you, Trinidad.
Yeah, sorry, I dig this dude from the Longbow and
Uptown.
Uptown. Yeah, very cool.
Way to go to
Actually like
change the
that
topic
design.
back to a topic that we covered and concluded like an hour ago, Paul.
I just
You
saw the
legend.
picture while I was grabbing my images
He's
to show
very
off.
quick. He's very easily distracted.
So guys, a lot of us had this catalog, the GI Joe. I think it's the 1992 catalog, or could even have been the 93 catalog. It's the
What
one
did you
that
get
has.
it with, Paul?
I honestly can't remember. I think if anything, it might have been the Barracuda.
I never got that.
Possibly.
I got a European Barracuda catalog.
Yeah, I don't
Did you
recognize
get
this.
Did you get your Barracuda from David when he went to Hong Kong?
No, I didn't. But now that you mention it, it's possible this might have come actually from David, by way of David. This catalog from me. So
Once again, knowing Paul's collection better than Paul does.
yeah, but like David and my collections are so like sort of intertwined, and I've got all
you
of these
can't
now
even
anyway. so
Tell
I'm like-
what's what anymore.
Yeah. Anyway, so we had this catalog, and inside the catalog,
For anyone listening, it's the one that has Duke.
Duke.
1992 Battle Core Duke art on the front. Just
And
shooting.
he's firing off
Shooting
some
his
machine
guns.
And in there's like a bit of the like sort of battle core. There's the Ninja Force in its entirety. There's DEF. There's the Supersonic Fighters, Talking Battle Commanders, and then also the role-playing gear like that weird Duke gun, and then the Snake Eyes mask and crossbow sort of role-play things for kids. But then they have this thing called the Hall of Fame GI Joe, and it's got a really awesome artwork of Snake Eyes there. And you get one solitary image of Duke, and he's all dressed up in like 12. It looks like a 12-inch figure. It's all like real clothing and stuff. So this got me like super interested. And I remember thinking, wow, this is incredible. Fast forward a little bit, a friend of mine who came back from England actually had this Duke. And I was blown away by the quality of the Duke. And I think one of the little pockets opens, and it just had a lot of like stuff that just made it interesting, like holsters and things. I'd never really experienced a toy like this before, Yes, we were surrounded by Barbie and stuff like that, but none of them carried machine guns or wore army fatigues. So, and I always had it in my head that we would see Snake Eyes. We would be able to see the face of Snake Eyes. So if I got this, I would be able to see Snake Eyes' real face. And to it, also Cobra Commander's real face. So one day, I'm in Cresta with my mother, and this figure, this Snake Eyes Hall of Heroes edition, or Hall of Fame GI Joe Snake Eyes 12-inch, sneaks a look at me at game. I was not expecting it. I was very excited. I was like, yes, finally, I too can see Snake Eyes' face. So, grab this thing off the shelf. Then, convinced my mom to buy it for me, which thankfully she did. Thanks, Mom. And I couldn't wait. I opened it up in the car, only to be disappointed by the fact that when you remove his mask, this is what you get. Another mask. And you get to see some of his face.
The Russian doll of G.I. Joe.
I was like, wow, I'm going to see Snake Eyes' face. This is going to be so amazing. And yeah, what a disappointment. Like, couldn't see Snake Eyes' face, which like killed the whole line for me. I was like, I couldn't care about the rest. I think at game they had Stalker as well. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to grab Stalker next. But I have to see Snake Eyes' face. And in all honesty, I kind of wish I'd grabbed Stalker. And I mean, this could be a Mandela effect thing as well. For all I know, it could be wrong. It could not have been Stalker in the store. But I just remember wanting Stalker more than this, but just getting the Snake Eyes because I wanted to see his face. Just, yeah, wow. And yeah,
Wow, they
Sidetrack.
still kept it from you.
Yeah, the tease. Bloody hell.
bastards.
Sidetrack though, do you guys ever get incensed about the fact that the Mandela effect has kind of now entered the public consciousness, that it's called that? Because isn't it alluding to the fact that people are unsure of whether he spent 27 years incarcerated or not?
Yeah, that
Does
does
it bug you?
irk me. Yeah, it does
Yeah.
irk me a little.
Guys,
Because it's
he
kind of a big
definitely
event
did spend
in our history. Yeah.
Yeah, a quarter of a century in prison.
Yeah.
That happened.
Never
and then
mind
he
the
came
fact
out
that
and became the state president. Like that's for real, man.
and wrote an autobiography. you know, so
More
like,
than one, I think. Yeah.
yeah, and there's tons of documentaries and things all over South African TV, at least, of that. So yeah,
They could have called it anything else, but they had to go with that. Maybe that's just because it was such a huge misconception that they just had to keep fixing it. And I don't even know how people come up with terms like this, but at least his name's out there, and that makes them think about him
Or
more.
is it? I feel like almost the Mandela effect now has surpassed Nelson Mandela's actual name as kind of the primary use of that term.
Oh no! I
To
hope
the
not.
point where people are kind of mispronouncing it. Like, I talk about misconceptions and mispronunciations. I've heard people say the Mandela effect.
Oh no!
The Mandela
but
effect.
Mandela is a completely different guy, man.
Yeah,
Oh, I know
know?
Mandela. He's an old friend
I
of
know
mine.
Mandela.
He's a good guy.
Yeah, I
Went to
also know
school with him.
Mandela. I'm not.
I like
you
what
know,
Gaz says about Snake Eyes.
he looks like Bones from Star Trek with a ski mask on. He totally does.
I'm a doctor, Jim, not a ninja.
Exactly. Cool, man. I think that rounds up all of our misconceptions, if I'm not mistaken.
I'd
Which,
like to add one thing to
Ooh.
to everyone's. Well, it's a very cool story, in fact, that I'd like to relate.
Oh, and I have a nice bonus one too. Carry on.
Oh, very good.
Ooh.
So, those of you who know the channel know that we did a deep dive on the Benelux catalogs some time back, about a year ago now. And out of that, Mauler Joe hit me up and said, look, have you noticed that in the sort of the credits, the fine print on the one catalog, it actually lists the head of marketing's name. And this guy's actually on LinkedIn. So maybe you could contact him and get some inside scoop on the process of making these fabulous catalogs. Well, I reached out and this guy reached back and we've been communicating ever since. He isn't so keen on the details because he preferred, as a sort of head of Hasbro marketing in the Benelux of the time, he wasn't directly involved in the creation of the catalogs. Like, I think he's downplaying his involvement. Maybe he's a bit shy, maybe he's a bit recluse about it, but he was sort of heaping the praise onto the photographers and the toy stylists and saying, like, he let the creatives do their thing. He just did his thing, kind of wasn't present in the studio sessions. Even still, I'm sure he's still got some fabulous insights into just the inspiration for creating these fabulous toy catalogs. Anyways, that's besides the point. The point I want to make is he had a wealth of carded Joes in his possession that he actually wanted to get rid of. Wanted to sell them. And to that end, I put him in contact with Snowcat Ron, who lives a couple of hours, maybe an hour's drive away. I don't know. They both live in the Netherlands. So it was a no-brainer that Ronald could help him find buyers for his stuff. Or alternatively, and this is what I hoped would happen, offer to purchase it himself, which he did. And now all these amazing carded Joes, which have sat in an executive's collection for decades, are now with our buddy Snowcat Ron,
That's
who made
wild.
the most thrilling discovery of all. He had a carded Tiger Force Duke, but the bubble had been cut open, and the figure had clearly been removed because it had some mud on it. And Ronald has the theory, and I believe him, that the carded Tiger Force Duke was the same Duke used in the Benelux catalog shoot. That the mud matches up with the same kind of mud they used in those layouts.
Oh no way!
Tiger Force sequences. Yeah. He's even got a bit of like filler in the 1 foot peg hole.
Yeah, to like help him
which-
stand, probably.
Yes, which is the one that would have been planted on the set, perhaps pinned in place with a metal rod or something. But yeah, there's a bit of filler or silicon, something inside his boot hole, which would suggest that he was used to stand in that
His
setup.
boot hole.
So it is
that
the
butthole in
same
Canadian?
figure from the
Asking for a
catalog.
friend.
Paul, you bastard.
Oh,
It's the same figure from the catalog, which is enormously exciting.
That's absolutely insanely cool. Like, it's literally the figure that they used, to the best of our knowledge.
I'm pretty
fact
sure it
checkers.
is.
Yep.
That's
One and the same.
wild. What a cool thing to be able to own. Like something that's been the exact figure that people have looked at and drooled over for like decades whenever they look at these catalogs.
Well, in the age of the internet, those catalogs are very famous. So that's a very heartwarming story. Love it. Anyways, Paul, you had something you wanted to add?
Yeah,
Add away.
it's something I want to throw in the misconception thing. Rob had a misconception about Target being an alien. I had a misconception as a kid that was shattered thanks to David. That pretty much every helmeted GI Joe, like in my mind, every Cobra toy that had a non-removable helmet, in my mind, was just a robot. They're all robots. So like Target, robot. That's actually what you actually just reminded me of it when you mentioned he was an alien. I was like, robot. They're all robots. Incinerators, robots. And David's like, they're not robots, they're people. And I'm like, no, they're not. He's like, yes, they are. And I think it was the Crimson Guard or something that made me, that triggered his reaction. And he's like, no, it's not a robot because I think he shot my character. And I was like, I'm not going down because I'm a robot, whatever. And then when we watched the movie, and he's like, see, they're not robots. The Crimson Guards are not robots.
Into a Crimson Guard's helmet, but like Annihilator, Incinerators, like those things don't have places for noses.
There's not enough space in those helmets. They must be robots.
A human head does not fit in there very well.
Yeah,
certainly
So I
not
was like, robots.
the O-ring
Track
style
Viper,
of head.
robot.
Yeah, Track Viper.
Yeah.
What's with that big flat section at the back, or small flat section? It's very narrow.
Robot.
Yeah. Big time.
Anyway, that's
Robot
me.
confirmed.
I'm dry on misconception now. Sorry.
Which means that it's time for a little reach into Postbox the Pit with Rob.
Hell
Rob
yeah, dude.
reads the internet.
So the one that I quite liked, because it also kind of like ties into stuff. So this is the first one. It was 247 when toys age badly. J Mart, he mentions, for the Joe Force side, it was all of Battle Force 2000. I only liked one of the team members, Blaster, and disliked all the vehicles. The concept just didn't click with me. As for Cobra, it was the Buzzball. Cool concept, but in hand, just fell flat. And which is interesting, because I mean, Stephen, I think it was literally in that episode, wasn't it? Where you give us how to actually play with the Buzzball. And yeah, I'd like to think that most people don't really like the Battle Force 2000.
Rob, you were an early-ish adopter of the Buzzball. You certainly got one before
Oh, for
me.
sure. I always liked it.
Really?
I thought it was
Because-
well, maybe not always, but I mean, like having like seen it and like having to choose, because I always had that obsession with like needing to own stuff that Steven didn't own.
Yes.
The Buzzball seemed like a cool toy. It seemed like a proper sci-fi toy and just something fun and different from most everything else that you could get from GI Joe.
You definitely were the offbeat kid. Like, tanks, helicopters, planes, forget that. I want the spinning saw blade
Give it to me.
vehicle.
Good chop shit.
Yep. All right. What's next?
Well, I wasn't involved in the next episode because I wasn't feeling too good, but episode 248, Sergeant Slaughter and Other Reveals, where the boys discuss all the really cool new toys that were coming out. Who was it that I liked the comment of? They were actually pretty straightforward comments. I think when I'm not involved, people don't bother with commenting so much.
Touche. But if you'd like your comment read out by Rob, be sure to scroll down and go
Hell
to
yeah.
town in the YouTube comments thread. And who knows, maybe he'll pick yours to be read out on the show. And
So
Paul and I to pass judgment on. Ha, ha.
yeah,
Yes.
so I'll just pick any one of them really. MC DJ ACDC said that
Hey.
he's very excited about that entire wave of classified figures except for Zorana. He totally is disappointed in how she looks.
Okay.
So he's excited for them, but Zorana does not meet his standards of what Zorana should look like.
Fair, fair.
But I
I'll be
reckon next
curious
week,
to
guys, these
interrogate
comments are
that
going to be
opinion a
very
little bit
interesting.
more. What exactly it is about Zorana's appearance that doesn't sit well. I mean,
Or
Zorana's
maybe he'll tell us.
all the female O-ring figures are tricky, man. They don't. All of them have failings. Let's put it that way.
They just
None
can't.
of
I
them
mean,
are.
they did so few of them. I think that they just didn't wrap their head around the feminine form as well as they could the male form.
Whereas the 6-inch now, you can have attractive females with all the articulation, looking good. I don't know.
Uniquely
Zora-
themselves. Yeah, and still look cool and look militaristic, which is nice.
Enough people have said that they don't like the classified Zorana design for me to question my own taste. Let's put it that way. Like,
Good
so
lord.
Andrew, you might well be in the majority there. And
Stephen's
time
the
will
only
tell.
guy who's going to be getting this figure. Or,
We gotta-
he
we-
would if he bought.
we got to get it in
classified.
hand to finally pass judgment.
Working on it.
Absolutely, you have to buy it to be able to tell them you don't like it.
Look, one thing's for sure, like the hair swapping mechanism is creepy as all hell. Like the results may vary, but just the process by which you take Lady J's hat off and reveal her dome
So weird.
with that ridge and then replace it with the hatless hair, like that's never going to be a comfortable transition. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, we'll
Close
see
your
what the
eyes,
results are
Serena.
like. Mhm. And
Everything's
Andrew
gonna be
follows up
okay.
in the comments. As Taurus said, I don't like her face. Let's change it, yes? He's still going to get her regardless, though. So, who wins at the end of the day? Hasbro wins. I think that's our episode, guys. It's
Hell
been
yeah,
a
dude.
blast. Thanks to the Berg Force for joining us live. Thanks to everyone out there for listening to us after the fact. Where were you, man? You missed the party. No, I'm kidding. We
come
love
and
you
join
all.
us.
We see you. GI Joburg is thankful that we have any following at all. This was just a fireside chat between three friends
Hell yeah,
initially,
dude.
and has blossomed into a community. And we absolutely adore the fact that, yeah, man, it's thriving, and we can reach out and speak to like-minded people across the world.
We're still
I'm
around
very
almost 250 episodes later. How many years now? 8 years? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8?
11 years.
Many years,
Uh,
11
years.
I'm not so secretly very smug about the caliber, the quality of people that post on our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram or tweet us. Like GI Joe, in a world where communities can often kind of be soured by disagreements and falling outs and people bringing things that don't necessarily relate to toys to the table, I'm very proud of GI Joburg and hope that it stays that way. I hope I haven't jinxed it now, but yeah, no, I like the refuge that I find.
It's true. I
in
think
our group.
thankfully we bring the focus on GI Joe, and the people that listen to us and watch us, they bring the focus to. I think that's really cool. There's so much
bring
stuff
the
going on in
madness.
the world that you don't need to talk about it all the bloody time. Like it'll always be there.
So I
just like
salute
GI
you,
Joe.
the Joburg community. Thank you. Thank you for being great people. And with that, I think it's time to chasse out the door. As always,
Cha-cha,
once again,
cha-cha,
thanks to
cha-cha,
the
cha-cha.
Berg Force for keeping the lights burning at GI Joburg HQ. You guys are awesome, and it's much appreciated.
9-9.
Keep us alive. 9-9. Thanks for joining us for
249. We are
249. Out and out.
Ow!
Misconceptions and
Berg.
Downpours. Catchy title, man. I like it.
Oh, I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. I came up with it. It's got to be good.
Good job,
Come
me.
on.
I came up with it. Who came up with it?
I did. Berg me now. Didn't
It's
Rob
good.
come up with it?
I came up with it. If it's
Bloody
bad,
hell.
someone else did.
Okay, you came up with it. Later, everybody.
Berg me now. Bye. Berg.